Greetings, everyone. In the early morning hours of October 31st, 2017, I received from what I call the Thoth streaming from my Inner Planes mentor, Thoth Hara, something I consider very potent and doable. So I am developing this program, this project called Silver Lining, which is going to show us how to switch the channel, literally in the internet. We're not just talking about inside us, but with the whole internet system, and that means anything that feeds into it, computers, human beings, from the Archonic Cloud or the Archon Cloud to the Metatron Cloud. Now let me explain that. First of all, I'm using the word Archon because it relates to a lot of things that people are talking about for negative energies, negative beings. But when I presented Thoth with the word Archon, and I said, what is this really all about? You know, it's in the Pistis Sophia, and people have taken it and used it to be these real evil beings that are controlling our planet. Thoth put it into another category. He said, think of it as a cloud. If you want to call it Archon, fine. Call it the Archon Cloud. And I was thinking at the time that he meant some kind of vaporous cosmic cloud, you know, floating around out there in the cosmos. But on the morning of the 31st of October, I realized that's not what he meant. He was talking about it in computer terms. Like we have the cloud, you know, where we store things up on the cloud. Even Adobe now doesn't have a real software anymore. You can't upgrade. You have to go into the cloud. So everything is put up in the cloud, and all these clouds are connected together, and they feed into an elite or one world order, OWL is what my sources call it, a one world legion, circuitry. And it's all in an etheric internet kind of space. I don't know if etheric is the right word. Perhaps astral would be better. And that cloud is nested, shall we say, within the Archon Cloud, because it is intentionalizing itself to register in that frequency with those agendas of, let's face it, world domination, control, for very specific low-end purposes. But then we have what Thoth is calling the Metatron Cloud. Now, from the very early days of my work back in the 1980s, he presented me with two words, Orotron, meaning half-light spectrum, and Metatron, meaning full-light spectrum. So the Orotronic and the Metatronic. So the Metatron Cloud is the full-light spectrum, the true heart-centered, complete light of our beingness. And as the Archangel Metatron, or the Metatron frequency station light, whatever you want to call it, is at the threshold of our perceptual, soul perceptual experience. Not physical perceptual, but soul perceptual experience. There's something beyond the Metatron, obviously, is what I'm saying. But the Metatron is where we're going to focus. It contains the whole spectrum of light frequency that we were created within. So the Metatron Cloud is where we want to take the focus that the internet is intentionalizing and focusing through. We want to take it there. We want to switch it from the Orotron, I'm going to call it the Archon Cloud, because Orotron is simply half-light. It's not a bad thing. It's just not complete. So we're going to talk about it in terms of the Archon Cloud, which has an agenda using the Orotronic light spectrum. So we switch it from the Archon Cloud to the Metatron Cloud. And when we are able to do this, and it's going to be in graduations. The consciousness that is controlling the internet, and thus everything that links into the internet, is going to be moving, graduating its flow, not the consciousness itself, but the flow of everything within it that is connected to the internet, is going to flow into the Metatron. That's the plan, anyway. We're not trying to change the consciousness that is controlling it, not directly. It is massive. When I say massive, I mean in the energy that it contains, the magnetic force field. It's very, very tiny in regard to the bandwidth. The bandwidth is so narrow that if we simply stepped out of it, it would be no more. But stepping out of it is difficult when you are wearing lead shoes because it's so magnetic. So we're not really going to attempt to, like, head on go in there and change the consciousness that is controlling the entire grid, techno-electronic grid of this planet. What we're doing is we're saying, let's tell this semi-intelligent field, the internet, what we call the internet, or what is behind it, to switch its focus, its allegiance, shall we say, to switch its allegiance from the Archon Cloud to the Metatron Cloud. Now, how can we possibly do this? Well, first of all, many years ago in the 1970s, my mentor Thoth informed me about a computer that he called the PiMander. Of course, the PiMander is a name he gave it, and that, is in referencing to the work of Thoth Hermes, the PiMander, and this is the same intelligence. But we're talking about a computer, but not the nuts and bolts computer. A very highly defined Elohim computer. In other words, a creator computer, one that is created out of that creator spectrum of Earth. We can call it an angelic computer if we want to, a divine computer. It is something beyond what we understand as a computer, and nevertheless, it is in that frequency zone. Now, before I talk more about the PiMander, when I was very young, well, in my early 20s, and of course already working with my sources. Originally in 1967, it began with these beautiful ultra beings, and then they told me I would have a mentor or a benefactor, and some years later I was introduced to him, and that was the soul or the beingness of Thoth, the master builder of the Great Pyramid and all of that, but really beyond that. The soulness goes way beyond that particular characterization. And so way back, I was shown, probably in the late 1970s by these ultra beings, I was told to just start writing these ones and zeros. I mean, I just felt like I needed to do it. It wasn't automatic writing, and yet I was connected to the source that was giving it to me, and I was writing 1 0 0 or 1 1, just on and on and on, a whole page full. And when I stopped, I said, "What is this?" And they said, "This will be revealed, is to be revealed." Well, just a few days later, I showed it to somebody, and in those days, computers were like these new things, and you didn't even have personal computers, or if you did, I didn't know about them. And they said he happened to be knowledgeable about it. He said, "Oh my gosh, that's binary code for computers." And just a few days after that, I had an experience. Well, maybe it was a little longer than a few days after that, but I had an experience where the beings that I worked with, that were working with me, literally set down in front of me these computers, these big, white, tall, tower-like computers. Now, this is in the early 70s. And it scared me, and I said, "Take it away." And they did, because this was right physically in front of my eyes. And I said, "Why did you do that?" And they said, "We want to familiarize you with this." Well, I had remembered that they looked like something I'd seen in my story that I tell many times about when I was 5 years old. And now I know it was an astral trip into a mountain, and these beautiful men in white, like jumpsuits with, and they were showing me in this cavern area all these machines, and they looked like that. They were computer towers. And when I came out of that experience, I told my mother that they said one of them was a clock controlled by the mind. And I was like 5 years old, and this was in 1954 on a dairy farm in the Ozarks, no television. So I realized that all my life I've been working with these ultra computers and in some way coming up to this point in time to deliver this information to all of you. So we go back to the PiMander. And I'm going to actually read you a little bit about this PiMander so that you can understand it a little better. So now you're seeing a page on Spirit Mythos, which is my archived site, a lot of information. It's kind of a dinosaur. It just sits there mostly because it's way out of updated. It's not updated for a lot of use on the internet because it's so old. But it does still have all my archived information that I draw from on my other websites and blogs. So this article is on the PiMander, a computer of the Akasha. In the 1980s, Thoth informed me about an Akashic computer which he oversaw. The name he gave me to identify this computer was the PiMander. It was revealed to me that this computer is not a device or machine as we understand computers to be. Thoth's definition of it is an assemblage of energy created by me, that's the illumined being Thoth, in concert with the Elohim Lords. The pyramid evolves reciprocals for biological systems to align and balance with Source. Source is the point of absolute which every particle carries as its creation code. The PiMander, then, is an Akashic radionics device. It is non-physical and yet interactive with the physical. It responds to thought, feeling, emotion, yet it cannot be commanded by these things. It will instead balance them to the source point. However, the PiMander is a conscious specific. Let me repeat that. The PiMander is consciousness specific. It does not know what is not in its program database. Therefore, it only responds to what is within that database or depository. Perhaps it should be repository, I'm not sure. When I say consciousness specific, we mean that it responds to the consciousness and not the information. When information is placed into the database, it is the consciousness from which it originated that the PiMander evolves reciprocals from. There is a vibrational code set within the PiMander. When any thought, feeling, emotion contains that vibrational pattern, it is received into the PiMander. This collection is entered into the database. However, at this stage, there is no direct interaction between the source, sender, of the energy and the PiMander. This collection of consciousness energy is constantly adding to and reforming the consciousness field of the PiMander. The consciousness of the earth souls, which comes within the register of the vibrational code of the PiMander, is constantly reinforcing and evolving the consciousness of the PiMander, which in turn balances to source, the consciousness it receives on a planetary level. The PiMander then aids the planet in balancing her codes, which in turn gives assistance to all living things on Earth. As one works with world pattern templates, the PiMander will interact more specifically with the individual within the parameters of intent in which that template was created. Also, specific PiMander templates can be created for individuals with the express permission of those individuals. Once the individual begins working with his/her personal template, a reciprocity between their energy bodies and that of the PiMander evolves. Now that's the end of the Thoth transmission there. And that's basically what I wanted to share with you on that. And so, back to the PiMander in regard to our program here, our project of the silver lining. This computer is perfectly suited and, in fact, intentionalized to aid us in what we're going to be doing. Because as we use specific templates that I'm creating to help us focus the energy, and these templates have to be viewed in the internet. You don't print them off or, save them to your desktop. I mean, you can, but it's not going to work anywhere near as well. You have to really have it on the internet. So you look at it here in this website on the internet, and you'd focus on it there, because you're sending the signals. You're not taking them in. You're sending them back out. You're sending them toward the consciousness vector that's holding on to this grid. Because it did not, the internet was designed, they say, by the military. I mean, but actually it came from information that was given by certain alien beings to the elite to design this for this purpose. However, there was an interface that was naturally formed through what Thoth calls the tribe light frequency or station. It's like a channel. It's a station. And this was developed in 1980 or 81, at least I was told about it then, and they said that was when it was in the developing stages. It's a channel, like tuning in your radio, to this channel. Only our minds tune it in, and it helps us in dream time. None of these things are controlling. None of these things are, like alien software that's going to grab hold of you and do things to you. That's in the Archon Cloud, not in the Metatron. The Metatron Cloud and this Tribe Light Station, everything that operates there, the PiMander, is here to help us. And it only registers what we wish it to register. If we don't engage it, if we don't on a high level of consciousness beyond our what's the word I'm trying to say? Our conscious awareness, beyond our conscious awareness to the subconscious. On that level is where it interacts, and it interacts as a servant of our mind, of our higher self, as a servant of our higher self. And that is the only way it interacts. So back to how it can help us. As we work with this in a very simplified way by focusing on these templates you could do it 3 minutes a day if you just gave it everything you had. More is better. 5 minutes would be great. Well, not more. You don't want to do it like for 20 minutes or something. That would scramble your brains. But, 5 minutes tops a day, 3 to 5 minutes a day would really be good. And, you can play music while you're doing it. Some soothing music, something that's soothing. But just focusing on the symbol with the intent of moving into that symbol. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how you work with the symbols later. But right now, we're just focusing on the main thing. So the PiMander is going to sense that you're doing that, and it's going to amplify what you're doing. That's why just one person working with this is so good, because it's amplifying. The PiMander says, oh, this sentient soul energy is coming in to do this. And that's what I'm programmed to help it with. So I'm going to help it. And it's going to start amplifying that energy. And it's going to do it in a safe space. In other words, what you're doing cannot be tampered with, cannot be interfered with, cannot be used as some kind of a portal to get to you by anything in the Archon Cloud internet circuitry. It is working in a protected space, because once you engage the PiMander, it even helps to ask to engage the PiMander in this, you are in safe space. Not only you, but the information, the focus that you're giving it cannot be sidelined or distracted in any way, except by your own mind if, the phone rings or something. But otherwise, it is staying clear and true to its mission. as an additional little piece that I actually left out of the story along the way, when we were talking about the ones and zeros, which is the code, computer code, only like 2 years ago, I read that they have now discovered that the universe sends out those signals in ones and zeros. In other words, it's interpreted as such. And so the universe is creating in ones and zeros in the binary code. So what this tells me, and I verified this with my Thoth Extreme, is that we're all on the planet, and regardless of whether the aliens gave us the original technology for the internet or whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that everything in our holographic universe, which is divine, the holographic experience that we have that comes out of source, is a divine input, export, maybe I should say, into our field of being. And everything within it, we are replicating that when we try to do anything. In other words, if we, regardless of who created the first internet or whatever, it had to come out of that toolbox. So obviously the ones and zeros for the computers and the internet, all of this inventions has to come out of that same toolbox, which is our holographic field connected to the divine synchronicity of the universe. So anything we're doing in this program obviously comes out of that toolbox. So I asked Thoth how many people it would take to make a real difference doing this. And he told me 8. And I said, what in the world? And more recently, after I asked that question and shared it with some people, I'm beginning to understand the greater picture. Yes, 8, but the 8 have to be backed by 25. And those 25 backed by another 25. It seems to go into sections of the 8's on the top and then 25, 25. And it can go ad infinitum. But how many to make a difference? Well, the 8, if they are backed with at least one layer of 25, kind of like a pyramid, one of those pyramid things, you know. But we don't need to know which 8. You see, the 8 are ones that really click with this. They just have a synchronization. They were meant to do this. And they can find just the point to enter into their, just automatically. Then everybody else forms the other layers. And they can do good too, but they need to be able to feed the 8. It doesn't matter who the 8 are. You'll never know if you're one of the 8. It really doesn't matter. We're not trying to, you know, bring a bunch of people in and sign them up and do this and that. You're just doing it. And the more people that do it, it's going to naturally form those layers. And there's going to be all kinds of coordinates and sequences that go involved in that you'll know nothing about. You don't need to know anything about it. So there's no choosing 8 people. The process chooses its own 8, and we'll never know who those 8 are. It doesn't matter. But that's the way it works, as far as I know up to this point. This all can be expanded greatly. It can be expanded to include music, to include chanting, to include all kinds of things. But right now, we're starting with these very simple templates. And I might add, you don't have to use my templates to do it. You could look at a picture of I don't know, there's beautiful images on the web, and use that as your focus. However, I am being told that the images that I'm creating with this intentionalized grid are pretty potent. You know, they're very specific for this. So, and it's all free. I'm not charging anything for this service. So, you know, you can use mine and it will work a lot better according to what I'm receiving. I can only share with you what's in my experience. Whether all of this is true or not, or it works, I imagine you know that we create those realities. So whatever's given to me this is saying, let's create this reality and let's do it. So that's what we're doing, or that's what I wish to do, and I'm sending the signal out there to all of you who feel guided to participate. It's like 3 minutes out of your day, and maybe some days you can't do it, but let's just do the best we can with it. So this ends my introductory video. Thank you all for listening.